All right, so welcome back, everybody. And we've got a new and interesting guest fossil hunter, I think, for us to see this time around. His name is David Celli. Cool. He's from the Merritt Island area of Florida. He's members with a number of fossil groups on Facebook, and he's friends with Deborah Powell, remember Fossil Babe? Yeah. And he's friends with Ken Follman, the guy with the fossil art. So it's neat that we're kind of building up this repertoire of local fossil hunters that know each other as well as know us now. Way into mammals. So he said he has a site. I don't know where it's at exactly, but he said he has a site. Megafauna. It's going to be mammoths, maybe mastodon, ground sloths. So I thought that's kind of cool if we have the chance to see some of that stuff come up.
That's great. Yeah, I'd like to see what they have there.
Oh, they don't like that.
Also, he mentioned that it's a good microfossil site too. He's into microfossils just like you are, John. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and give that a shot and see how that goes.
So April, is David Celli in love with shark's teeth like so many of our guests?
Not really a shark's tooth guy. He doesn't really like finding triangles, as he calls them.
He calls them triangles? I love that. He's a cool guy already.
And the big thing that he does is outreach for students. He has a sandbox, and he puts some really good fossil pieces in the sandbox.
So that's what he does with the shark's teeth he finds? He sticks them in the sandbox for kids to take home?
I mean, Don was going through it going, oh, you sure you want to give this away? No, it's fine. No problem.
So Trish, John, April, and myself, behind the camera, met with David Celli and his daughter Cora in Merritt Island, Florida. David's fossil site is a spoil island located in the Indian River. This island was created when sediment was dredged from nearby. 15,000 years ago, this area was dry land where animals lived and died. Later, the river cut through it, and the dredging further exposed the fossils of these animals in what is now known as the Melbourne Bone Bed.
So here we are on an adventure with David Celli and his daughter, Cora. And so tell us where we are.
We are on a spoil island in the Indian River and the central Florida Atlantic coast.
So why would you find fossils out here in the middle of this island?
Well, this island is a spoil island. This is where they dug a channel 50 years ago to ship citrus out. And when they dug the channel, they dug in the bottom of the river and they hit a good fossil pocket. If you go back about 12,000 years, this river wasn't here. This would have been a valley. Would have been a nice fertile valley full of grass, and animals would have been coming here eating. Of course, they lived here, they died here, and now we're digging them up. We're going to find snake vertebrae, we're going to find giant armadillo scutes, we're going to find, oh man, a hodgepodge of everything. A horse might show up, a camel might show up, and we might even find a mammoth.
This is an unusual section of Florida to look for late Pleistocene fossils. And we're going to talk later about the Florida's Geological Survey map and the two primary depositional layers in this immediate area. First is the sand. The sand dunes are Holocene sediments, later than 10,000 years. Then underlying that is an Anastasia Formation limestone. This is found along the entire Atlantic seaboard. And this is late Pleistocene as well, but it's a marine deposit. So we're going to see what fossils we find. We're going to talk about these depositional layers and try to learn a little bit more about it later on in the day.
All right, how we hunt this area right here is anywhere between this old grizzly cedar tree and around the corner over here. And we dig through the rocks. Just scooping my hand up, I bet we find some fossils. Like here is a nice piece of turtle shell.
Okay, what have I got? That's a Florida crown conch because that looks like a crown.
Me personally, I like hunting the shoreline just because I'm a creature of habit and that's what I do.
And I just found something.
What you got?
Well, I scooped up some sand and dumped it in there, and I found this. It looks like a vertebrae, and I caught a little critter. A baby horseshoe crab. Isn't he cute?
When I say small stuff here, this is my microsite, I mean small stuff. We have a little snake vertebrae. We have a frog vertebrae. That's the kind of stuff we find here.
Kind of cute, do you suppose?
Oh, it's a tapir.
Tapir, all right.
Mm-hmm.
And a tortoise spur.
Tortoise spur.
Yeah. Cool.
So what do we have here, Cora?
It's a horseshoe crab.
Is this a living
Yes.
fossil? They call these living fossils. Horseshoe crabs, because they've been around for so long. He's very cool. Have you ever picked one up?
No, and I'm not planning to.
Oh, okay. Let me show you. He's going to try to use his tail on me, but see his
See,
legs?
that's why I don't pick them up.
See his legs? I'm just being very gentle with him, and see how he uses that tail for defense?
Yeah.
And he's hoping to spike me with it. We're going to put you right back, little guy. Watch. Right back in the water. And right back to nature.
Yeah, this is the only thing I've found so far other than turtle fragments. It's a blowfish jaw. You can see the grinding plates. There's the teeth, but this is a recent one. You find them fossilized all the time, but this is an example of a fish that continues to exist today, as well as 12 to 50,000 years ago.
10,000-year-old deer tooth. Right here, Brevard County. And then, nice coprolite, fossilized species. Back in 1991, I was a freshman in high school. My science teacher used to hunt Bone Valley back in the 60s. He had a massive fossil collection, and I was always back there poking through it, looking at stuff. He noticed my interest and he started giving me stuff. And ever since then, I have been into fossils. And now, from the interest he sparked, now I give to kids. I just do it because someone was nice to me, so I feel I should be nice to people back.
No doubt.
It is a dying hobby, by definition.
Bone fragment, just laying around. Lots of turtle shell and other bone fragments. Got a couple of different teeth and scoots, things like that. Oh yeah,
You just found your first mammoth tooth.
I did. Are you jealous?
Will you go wash it off for me?
Pretty awesome. It's a good day.
Holy cow. You've only brought up one other one? Get back in that hole.
Oh, I am.
Wow.
Find the other part to it.
Mammoth tooth.
Mammoth tooth. All this, I think, comes from what we call the Melbourne bone bed. It's generally 20,000-year-old and newer. And that's the age of the fossils we're finding here. But they're all associated on this corner of the island.
Hey guys, I think I got, I don't know, it could be a horse tooth? A tooth of some kind.
It doesn't look like horse.
Oh my goodness. This is a beautiful sloth. And the neat thing about this sloth is the species name. Our third president, Thomas Jefferson, named that guy.
That's the Jeffersonian?
That's the Jeffersonian.
Oh, we were just talking about
Absolutely.
that yesterday. We were.
Absolutely.
The ground sloth Megalonyx jeffersoni stood about 10 feet tall and was named after President Thomas Jefferson, who had received the fossil specimens from Western Virginia. His presentation to the American Philosophical Society is considered the beginning of vertebrate paleontology in North America. Sloth tooth, mammoth, where's the mammoth?
I guess it's my day.
I guess the fossil queen is back.
Indian River.
Holy cow, honey. Sloth and mammoth. And you've gotten sloth off of here before?
I have gotten sloth off of here, and for everybody watching, Indian River is my river. You guys stay off it.
Well, it looks like the fossil queen is definitely back. I'm the fossil queen!
What do you got this time?
Horse tooth. Pretty nice, big, long one.
Horse tooth.
Is that what they mean by are you long in the tooth?
That's kind of, yeah. Except it's the opposite. When horses get older, their teeth get shorter.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean, I'd like to call this episode Get Out of My Hole. That's my name for the episode. One of the reasons why I brought you guys out here is because of the microfossils. Stuff that you wouldn't normally find in a river with flowing water because of erosion. Of course, the little stuff breaks apart. Here we have still water, so the little stuff doesn't break. You can dig through the fine stuff and you'll find the frog vertebrae. You'll find the lizard jaw bones. You'll find salamander vertebrae, and that's stuff you wouldn't find in a river.
Let's collect some matrix. We'll show everybody how that works. And what we're going to do is sift it through a 1/4 inch screen, and then we're going to sift it through a window size screen so that the sand and clay mud will settle out. So we'll get a nice clean sample of microfossil matrix that we can dry and look for all of that good stuff that David thinks is in there. With a water environment, it's easy to separate the larger shell hash from the clay. Okay, that ought to do it for now. Okay. Okay, so we've removed the bigger stuff. You can see the coquina shells and the small clams and all of that, the organic material. So we set that off to the side. Now we've got a shell hash mixture with sand. We try to wash as much of that sand off as we can and the organic material. What we're going to do is collect this. We'll put it in, collect it, put it in a cloth bag for carrying back in the kayak.
With their newly discovered fossils and their microfossil matrix safely on board their kayaks, the fossil hunters leave David Celli's island in search of their next adventure.